We are 40 days away from your final chance to cast a ballot in the 2020 election. As November 3rd approaches, know this: many states allow you to vote early or by mail. You can also go to cbsnews.com/vote to check our handy election tool that gives you resources on how to vote in your state. The milestone comes as President Trump is declining to commit to a peaceful transition of power if he loses the election. Instead of giving immediate support to a key tenet of American democracy, the president renewed baseless claims about voter fraud. CBS News White House correspondent Ben Tracy has more.
Will you commit to making sure that there is a peaceful transferal of power after the election?
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
President Trump has not provided any evidence to support his ballot claims. He also suggested getting rid of mail-in ballots.
We want to get rid of the ballots, and we'll have a very peaceful. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation.
This isn't the first time the president has said he may not accept the results if he loses.
It's a rigged election. It's the only way we're going to lose.
Last night, former Vice President Joe Biden blasted the president.
What country are we in? Look, he says the most irrational things. I don't know what to say about it, but it doesn't surprise me.
President Trump is also once again at odds with his own health experts. Hours after FDA Commissioner Stephen Hahn tried to reassure the public that approval of a vaccine won't be rushed.
Science will guide our decisions. FDA will not permit any pressure from anyone to change that.
President Trump, who has said a vaccine could be ready by Election Day, claimed the White House will have the final say.
We're going to look at it. We're going to take a look at it, and ultimately the White House has to approve it.
Campaigning in the battleground state of North Carolina Wednesday, Biden also criticized the president's recent claim that virtually nobody except older Americans is dying of coronavirus.
So you go home and your mom's gone, your dad's gone. He's a virtual nobody?
The White House is denying reports that Dr. Deborah Birx, the coordinator of the White House Coronavirus Task Force, has been sidelined in favor of the president's handpicked doctor, Scott Atlas. But CBS News has learned that Dr. Birx and other members of the task force have clashed with Atlas, who has questioned the use of masks and called school closures hysteria. Ben Tracy, CBS News, the White House.
Cassie Smedile is the Deputy Director of Communications for the Republican National Committee, and she joins me now from Washington. Welcome, Cassie. Thank you so much for being with us. First off, I have to ask you, what is your response to the president's recent comments that he declines to commit to a peaceful transition of power were he to lose the election? And will the Republican National Committee commit to ensuring a peaceful transition if necessary?
Well, the question that the president was asked is what were his thoughts, win, lose, or draw? And from the president's perspective, and certainly from our party's perspective, we're planning to win. So that's where the mindset of the president is right now. Certainly that's what we're doing 40 days out from Election Day to ensure that that is the result on November 3rd, not just for the president, but of course all Republicans. And so I think that everybody keeps asking about this question, but you have to think about where the president's mindset is right now. He is working to win. And so when he's talking about what happens on January 20th, he's getting re-sworn in for a second term in office.
But Cassie, that's not what he was asked. He was asked, would he commit to a peaceful transition, and he declined to commit to that.
But again, the question was asked, win, lose, or draw. So he's hearing win, and he's thinking, I'm hoping to win, planning to win. And I think that that context is important. I think, of course, you've got to also take into consideration, ask that question of Joe Biden. I mean, Hillary Clinton told Joe Biden, do not give up, do not give in. And everybody seemed to be fine with that suggestion of that. Hillary Clinton, who we know was not very quick to accept the results of the election in 2016. So why is that okay? And yet the president, who's just working to win and get reelected, and that mindset is not okay.
So it is doubtful that all ballots will be counted on November 3rd, especially with so many Americans planning to mail in their votes. So how is the RNC preparing for an election process that is likely to be drawn out over the course of a few days or even weeks?
Absolutely. So in the run-up to this, we, of course, have been working with legal teams, not only our own, but around the country, to ensure that every ballot can be safely and securely cast and counted, and that people have the ability to request their absentee ballots or know how to vote early, whether it be in person or by absentee. A huge push for that, bigger than we've done in prior cycles. And then in addition to that, when you talk about Election Day and what that's going to look like in the days following, that's the benefit of having the largest ground game in party history, something that doesn't exist on the other side right now. We've trained more than 2 million volunteers. We've got a staff of approaching 4,000 people in all of these battleground states. So these are folks who can help to ensure that people not only know how to get to the polls or request their ballot, but are also helping to ensure that everything is up to snuff on the days following the election as well, to ensure that when all the ballots are cast and counted, that we can be sure that we have the rightful winner is legally declared.
Right. So are you expecting that this election may be decided in the courts?
Listen, we're not putting anything off the table. We're preparing for all scenarios. But I will say that this year, as we've seen just an unprecedented effort on the part of Democrats to change election procedure less than 100 days out, less than 60 days out. Here we are 40 days out, and we're still hearing about legal measures that they're wanting to take in these states. So we're making sure that our team is on offense to ensure that every voter who is legally able to cast a vote is able to do so.
Mm-hmm. And Cassie, the president did say yesterday that he believes it's important to have 9 justices because the election could end up in front of the Supreme Court. Let's play some of his remarks about that.
I think this will end up in the Supreme Court, and I think it's very important that we have 9 justices. This scam that the Democrats are pulling, it's a scam. This scam will be before the United States Supreme Court, and I think having a 4-4 situation is not a good situation. If you get that, I don't know that you'd get that. I think it should be 8-0 or 9-0, but just in case it would be more political than it should be, I think it's very important to have a 9th justice.
So, Cassie, does the Republican Party have a plan in place to make sure that this election does not have to go in front of the Supreme Court?
Well, that's why we're working every single day to turn out the vote, make sure that from our staff on the ground to volunteers, that they're working within their communities they've been in for years now. Nobody's parachuting in 2 months out from Election Day and starting to knock on your door. These are folks you know, your friends, your neighbors, your family members. But I would also note the importance of having 9. Why we say we need 9 is because the president has a constitutional obligation to nominate someone, and the Senate has a constitutional obligation to advise and consent. There's no reason why that cannot and should not go forward. And of course, for those of us old enough to remember, I wasn't that old, but I'm old enough to remember Bush v. Gore 20 years ago. It was very important that we had a full Supreme Court so that if need be, we could get a proper solution and verdict so that we could have that all-important peaceful transition that you're talking about earlier, whether that just be President Trump being re-sworn in for a second term or otherwise.
Right. And Gore did peacefully accept the Supreme Court's decision in that case. All right. Well, Cassie Smedile, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.